let's do a quick overview. So we have gone through all the Kubernetes components, right? What is the master component? What is the node components, and how those component works, right? And you know what all the benefits we can achieve using those components, right? So today we're gonna go through how to how to do the installation of I will call it Kubernetes using kops. Kops is basically, you can say is a tool which can help you to, create the production ready Kubernetes cluster for you, right? Kops only does not support the AWS, it supports VMware, it supports AWS and some other clouds, right? Still a couple of, they might be like doing integration with the multiple, cloud as well. So that can help you to quickly create your cluster from the CLI, right? And all your components, in a one go, right? So before we get started with using the kops, right, I will quickly, remind what is Kubernetes. Kubernetes is nothing but it was originated from the helmsman, which means pilot, right? The Kubernetes helps you to, run your components or your pods in the highly available and scalable mode, right? As we was discussing last time, right, we needed some solutions, right? One of my application is, or my pod is getting down, it should be automatically regenerated. When the load is increasing, the pod should be automatically, increased. And these all things are handled by the Kubernetes automatically. We don't have to do anything, right? Everything is managed and handled by the system itself. So we have gone through a couple of benefits also. So we're gonna go through the, getting started with Kubernetes installation. I have already stated, guys, the documentation of the Kubernetes is pretty awesome, right? Please spend most of your time with those documentation and you'll get more learnings from there, right? Even if I talk about how to install the Kubernetes using the kops, there are many ways of installing the Kubernetes, right? You can do it from the kubeadm, right? Kubeadmin and kops, and you can do it from the GUI itself. So you have many way of doing it. So I'll be sharing a couple of documents with you, so you can follow those, right? Even you see, installing kops with kops in Kubernetes, I mean Kubernetes with kops, this provides you fully automated installation, uses DNS to identify cluster. So the good thing about this is it uses the DNS name to identify your cluster. So it becomes easy to identify your cluster also. You can access your cluster with your domain names, your nodes with domain names. So that's one of the good benefit of using kops. It provides you the self-healing, right? Everything you run, you create using the kops. It gets automatically added to the auto scaling, so you don't have to do anything. So you go with one node, right? If the load is increasing, your I would call it your load will be increased, so on and so forth. That's what it does, the self-healing for you. It support multiple OS. You can go through these. It supports high availability as well, right? Can direct provision or generate the terraform main feast. you know it can be, you can also integrate this with terraform. You mean you can write the terraform to create the kops cluster. You don't even do not need to write the do it from the kops. So these are the couple of benefits of using kops. Also, I will not say like every time you do it from the kops, you can do it from the GUI itself also, right? And before you begin, what all things you need, guys, you need kubectl command. I mean, kubectl is basically called the captain on the ship. You already know about it. So this tool is basically used to interact with your Kubernetes cluster, right? Pull the your Kubernetes cluster information, create pods, and send information of your master. I mean, your slave nodes to the cluster master. It does so many things, right? Then you need to install the kops. Kops is a small binary, So which will create your cluster, which will interact with your AWS itself. Then you need to set up the AWS account. You need to create some IAM roles, or you need to generate key. Either you use the keys or you create the roles, right? So you need some etiquette permission to create the resources on the AWS. We'll go through it, right? You can even find the in documentation like creating cluster, install the kops. You can go to the Linux, here you can copy the command. All the instruction will be here. You can do it from here itself, right? And you are all done. Second, it says create the Route 53 domain for your cluster, right? Because you will not have your domain names, right? If you don't have, you can even create your domain names going through the Route 53. You can use your public domain names. You can use your private domain names also, right? We'll discuss about this also. The next is you have to create the S3 bucket where all the resources of your cluster will be placed, right? The fourth step would be, to create your cluster. Right, and finally the cleanup. So you can see guys how the pretty awesome documentation is here, right? Even if you do copy paste, that works for you, right? So this is not the only way of doing it, right? You can also use the kubeadm. Also you can provision your machine and install your components manually. So that's totally up to you how you want to go with. But most of the clouds and everywhere you will see the kops, either kubeadmin will be used to provision your cluster, but nothing is fancy, right? Everything is easy and smooth to do with, right? So the first step guys I will do is I will create one roles. So you already see it, I have already mentioned in the document also. You can go through it, what all the components you need to install to get it with. I'll format in and upload it in the I will call it in the documentation section. So let's go as we are going in the documentation itself. So first I already have one machine available with me. So this is my RHEL7 machine, right? So just take the IP of this and access this machine. So I'll be root here itself, right? So I don't have any command available with me. So let's go ahead and start installing the commands one by one, right? The first command we need is, you can go to the documentation, you curl it. The first we need the kubectl, right? So I will need the curl also. So hopefully I have curl maybe, right? So what I'm doing is I'm just doing the downloading the latest version of kubectl. You can do different version of kubectl. Go to the documentation guys. Here in documentation it is self-explained here. Guys, if you're not speaking, please keep yourself in mute, right? For example, if you need the different version, go to this repository here in the download, right? And if you are running some production grade application or cluster, so you can go here, find which version you need and get that downloaded. It looks permission issue so far. It shouldn't be, but we can try it with this, right? But here we are just downloading the latest version for us. Remember this. So you can see guys, we have now kubectl command available. If you run this kubectl here using /kubectl, this is nothing but it's like a script here, right? So you just need to make it executable, right? And once it is executable, you just have to move this script to the this place, right? So let me just try showing, running it here. You can see it says this is not executable so far. I said okay, let's become executable. And if you try it, you can see still it says cannot execute the binary. Okay, that's a binary file and we cannot execute it right at this moment. So we'll have just have to place it in the bin. So square and move this to kubectl here. Right now, try running kubectl hyphen hyphen help. The command has been installed and it's ready to use. You can we will discuss about this further. Right. So once we have done kubectl in my client node, this is the basically node which I will use to access my cluster and do everything in my cluster. However, I can access my cluster directly and do the things. Right. The second option for us guys is to install the kops. Right. Again, I will download the latest version of kops. Right. So just copy this. So this is just downloading the latest version for us.
सर ये पुट्टी पे थोड़ा फॉन्ट बड़ा कर लेंगे.
Sure. Hope this is fine. Right. Again, like we have this binary. Right. Instruction would be very similar there. Just make it executable. Move this binary to the user local bin because bin is executable for all the user. Right. So just go ahead and paste it here and just move this command from here to user local bin. And now you will be able to see kops is running. Right, you can use hyphen hyphen help or hype kops. You'll see you can get all the flags that we will need from the kops as well, but all it can run. Right, once you are done with this guys, once you are done with installing kops, you also need to install the AWS CLI. Right, so I will install the AWS CLI first. I will go ahead here and will install the AWS CLI. Instruction will be similar guys, just unzip it. I will not have zip here. I will install unzip. Right, and we'll just install the AWS CLI. So once you install it, so AWS will be available for you here. Right, it says now you can do AWS. Now you are good to now perform all the AWS command. Now now to connect with this AWS account, what I need is I will need to configure my keys. Right, I will need to configure my security keys and credential, but I'm not going to do this time. So what I will do is I will access everything using the roles. We already know, right? I'll not explain it now. If we need to access any of the AWS service from another AWS service, the role can help us on this. Right, you guys already know it. So we need couple of role to create this cluster. So I will shift these instruction here. I will put it here. Sounds good. We need four roles. First is EC2 full access because we need to create instance. We need to create, I will call it a VPC route and so many things. So that's what I'm giving full access to EC2. The second, we also need to create the S3 bucket so that we could place our cluster configuration in S3. That's what I'm giving the full access to S3 also. Or we can place our keys in the AWS so that S3 also, so that we anyone having access to the S3 bucket, he and she will be able to access our cluster completely. The fourth role we need is to access the route 53 because we will be using our domain names, right, to create the cluster. That's what we will need the route 53 also. We are giving full access to it. We can create it from the GUI CLI and something. Right, and finally we need the IAM full access because once the cluster will be created, it will create couple of roles for you also to create that cluster and for access and other thing managers. That's what we will be creating one role instead of giving access to a complete access and manage access from the AWS configure. You already know about it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create, let's say, one. First, let's create the S3. Sorry, IAM policies. policies, let's go to role and let's go ahead and create one role. Let's say I need it for EC2. Go ahead and add the permission. So let's start selecting those 4 roles that we need. Here we go. So we have selected all the roles. Even if this is not working now, we can go ahead and do it later on. I can go ahead and set the boundary permission, create a role without a permission boundary or with a permission boundary. So totally up to you how you want to do it. You can further change it also. Like the roles we was assigning here, like that's gone up maybe. Right, the filter, the policy we was trying to create here. That's fine. Even if you don't set it now, you can set it later also. Let's say I go ahead and create this here. Let's say I'll show you that. That can help you also. That give it a key. I will call it AWS class demo underscore kops. Click on review. We'll call it AWS class KA Kubernetes cluster and kops, right? Okay. The policies we have given, guys, these. Permission boundaries is not set. That's fine. Go ahead and create it. Okay. So the role has been created. So I can see my role here, right? Just click on this role, scroll it down, and see all the policies are attached. So permission boundaries, I'm not going to make any changes. Let's remain same at this moment. I'm not setting any boundaries for this, right? So now, once you are done with this role, right, go ahead, EC2, bind this role to your EC2 instance. I believe you already, everybody knows about it. So I don't have to explain much, right? So just go to action, guys. Go to instance state, attach and replace IAM role. Go to roles. What is that? AWS class K Kubernetes cluster kops role. Right? Go ahead and apply this and close it. Here we have attached the role with this, right? So now let's go to AWS console now. Let's do AWS configure. And now this instance would be able to access anything, guys. So whatever the role we have assigned, so you can go ahead and check that AWS LSS3, right? So it's gonna show everything now, whatever we have, right? Whatever the things, SNS, SMS, everything it is showing, right? So even we can like run a AWS configure just to tell it which zone we are going to use. We do not need access key, we do not need secret key because we are using our I mean roles. So I just have to define the region here. So let's see which I'm working in the Amazon Mumbai region. So this is AP South 1, right? So I'll do AP hyphen South 1. Is that AP hyphen South hyphen 1? Oh, sorry guys. AP hyphen South hyphen 1, right? Go ahead and give the default format. Okay. Now I do have all access, right? Any anything I will create, that will be created now in the Mumbai region, guys. Right? Remember this. So we are done with this also, right? Now we are done with the creating roles, and we are also done with the setting the credential and decided where our roles will be created, means where my resources will be created. The next one will be, guys, setting up a route 53. right? So let's go to Route 53 and create one hosted zone. You already know what is Route 53 and why we use it. So that's what I'm not explaining it much here. But I will create here a private hosted zone because I think my domain has been already expired. So I need to buy it. So instead of buying that, so what I will do is I will create my hosted zone here. So I'm going to do shaker1.net, which I believe is free. I have tested this, right? So what I'm giving a domain name is shaker1.net. You can use it free of cost also, whatever the name you want. At this moment, I'm not using the public hosted zone, right? Public hosted zone routes the traffic between the internet, but the private hosted zone routes the traffic within your VPC itself, right? That's what I'm using it so that I could route my traffic within my VPC. So the next one is select the VPC and the region where you would like to create it. I am in a Asia Pacific region, and choose your VPC. If you have new VPC, go ahead and choose it. So I'm going with the default VPC. However, when you will be creating your cluster, right, it will be like basically using creating the VPC and other things here, right? You can have more than one if you want. So just come down, create this hosted zone. So the shaker1.net was successfully created. And if you come down, guys, you will see at this moment we'll have uh, two records only, which is NS record and SOA record. Further couple of records will be added to this when the cluster would be created using the kops. So it will be automatically done. We don't have anything. So far we have created our S3 bucket. I mean, we have created Route 53, a private hosted zone. We have our instance. We have our IAM rules. We have installed all the prerequisites in my uh, client machine from which I will install my AWS cluster or will use this machine to access my cluster, right? So every instructions are written in place. So even those are recorded in the video also. So please go through this documentation as well, right? The next, I want to create one bucket here. So let's go to S3 bucket and see if I have any bucket. Then I'll delete those and we'll create new. I do have one, so let's go ahead and delete these. Make them empty first. Okay, so let me delete this one also. Okay, so let's see if this goes away also. It's like we did this in elastic beans and still this is here. This is not going because of the retention policies maybe. Okay, that's fine. So the next we are going to create the AWS bucket. You already know how to create the AWS bucket from the CLI also, from GI also. So I am just creating my AWS bucket and I know that I have access to it, right? So you can see my bucket has been created with the name aws.shaker1.net, right? The next, export your kops. You have to create one variable. What this variable is saying, guys, I'm creating one variable kops underscore state underscore store. I'm saying where the kops will store the configuration, and I'm saying this will be the path aws.shaker1.net, and this is the bucket that I should have in my AWS that we have just created, right? Just give it a refresh here. Oh, sorry, it's a batch operation. So that's my bucket, right? And where all of my store will be stored. The cops I think information will be stored here, right? The next, we just need to create the cops cluster. right? Before you do it, you also generate your SSH keys so that you could access your cluster. Make sure you are doing it before you are generating your cluster. So that's what I'm doing, SSH keygen here, and my SSH key would be generated inside here. You can see pub and RSA. You already know these things also, so I'll not explain much. So these are just to create a cluster configuration. I mean access your AWS cluster. I'm sorry for that. For your Kubernetes cluster, right? Once you're done with this, guys, you just need to write one command here. Let me explain it to you. Kops is a command. I am saying create one cluster. Create your cluster in the zone AP South 1B. South 1B is basically a availability zone inside your AWS cluster in the Mumbai region, right? So you'll be already familiar with the regions available here. Whenever you are creating an instance, right, you'll be able to see those availability zones here. In which availability zone you are basically generating your instance. So I'm sorry for this. It's network subnet assign, and okay, on the basis of subnet we can get that, I think, right? In which availability zone you would like to place your subnet here. We have three availability zone in the Mumbai region, so in any of the region you can put your cluster, right? So that's what I have given here, AP South 1B, and my cluster name, my DNS name would be aws.shaker1.net, right? And I'm saying my hosted zone is, my DNS is private, right? My DNS zone is shaker1.net, and it's a private DNS, right? And this record I have not added so far. It will be automatically added by the kops cluster. I'll show you that also. Just go ahead and hit enter here to create a cluster. So it will validate couple of things. You see here, it will private DNS, skipping DNS values, and what it's all things going to do. You can go ahead and see here. Come up, come more. It's doing hell of things like here, right? You can see here what all things will be done, and number of things will be happening here, right, from verification. So it says it will use your key that you have created first here, right, to access your cluster. So those will be placed in your machines itself. Coming down, you see, will create one resource, auto scaling in this region, and couple of things, the master AP, this .NET, the nodes will be created, the nodes name and everything will be here. You'll have to go very in auto scaling groups, right? From auto scaling groups your VMs will be created, right? You can see here the volume type, it will create the volume type for you, EBS, so here you can get the detail of it. Will create the 20 GB of volumes for each of your tags targets, and it is allocating tags to those, right? It is creating some IAM roles for you, if you see here, right? IAM instance master.aws.net, and so many things. Even it will be creating, if you scroll it down, you can see it will be creating VPC, it will be creating key pairs to access your cluster, right? So it will be, doing so many things for you. So just come down, you'll be seeing more detail here. So you can see here, right? So what all port will be used here, some extra rules it is adding to your cluster, right? Some, it is creating security group here also for accessing the node, right? You'll have to manage those roles also to access your cluster, right? In the same way, the master node would be, AWS master.aws.shaker.net, right? So in the same way, your nodes will be there. You can see ingress rules are being created, and a couple of things are being created here, right? And if you see here, many rules, VPCs, and everything is, you can see here, right? So many things will be created. So you can see the private VPC will be created named aws.shaker1.net, and it says if you want to apply these changes, go ahead and do yes. It gives you a couple of suggestion, guys. that you can note it down sometime. So I'll note it down also. Let's say I'm just copying these and placing it over here. And I will call it. We place it here. It says if you want to get the cluster list, go ahead and do it. It says edit the cluster bit. If you want to edit this cluster that you are creating, do this. If you want to, the nodes are being added to the cluster. If you want to edit those, go ahead and do it from here. Right, edit your master instance group. Right, if you want to edit the master, what all the configuration master has, you can go ahead and do it. Right, let's say I go ahead and edit in the node edit section. Right, you can go ahead and paste it here. It will show you one YAML file. Right, in YAML file you can see API version is this, kind as instance group, metadata is this. Right, this will be a node. Right, and this is the image which is being used to create this instance. If you want to change it, you can do it. Machine type would be this. Maximum size of 2, minimum size will be 2. Means maximum 2 node will always remain. You can change it accordingly, right? And so many things. You can see the node role is being assigned, and the subnet will be AP hyphen south 1AB 1B, right? So still you have edit option to edit your cluster. In the same way, if you go to your master node, if you want to edit something in the master node, go ahead and edit this. What I did. Sorry for that. I just run that command to update the cluster, right? I'm saying, okay, I'm good with these configuration. Go ahead and run this command. That's what I have run. Kops update cluster hyphen hyphen y. So it has started adding my cluster. You can see kops update cluster hyphen name. So this is my cluster. I'm saying, okay, go ahead and update the cluster. It was not created that time. So now it will start creating the cluster for me, right? So again, it says if you want to validate your cluster, so to validate it, run kops this. It says this is creating your cluster, but you will see a couple of errors would be here itself, right? It says the master node, right? Two nodes are being created here, right? DNS is API server. Still the validation is failed. So that's fine. You do not need to be panic on this. You will get this error because it takes a couple of minutes to create your cluster, right? In the same way, it gives some example here, get nodes, and it also gives, if you want to SSH your master node directly, you can use it, right? We will use it too. I will save this now. Even we don't need it, we know how to access it, right? Because we know we already have RSA key available and user is admin in all the nodes, and we can directly access our nodes also from here. So still you guys will see, oh shit, my bad, I run it twice. Okay, that's fine. So let's wait for some time to, validation and everything to be completed. Meanwhile, let's go to the EC2 and see it would have started creating the instance for me. So you can see here it's creating instances now. It's creating one node and one master node also. Okay, now let's give it a hit again, and you can see now your cluster is ready to use. You can see one master node has been created, which is T3 medium. One is minimum, maximum is minimum. Always one will remain, and we have two nodes available, right? Always two nodes will remain instead of anything. So this is the list of names, right? You can access these nodes from here itself, and your cluster is ready. And its DNS is aws.shaker1.net, right? Again, guys, now you will see, right? Let's go to instances quickly. Here, three instances has been created. Two are nodes. So this is the node, right? And you can see this is the node also, right? So this is mine, I think, and this is the master. This is node, and this is node. Three nodes are here. So these three are two are basically the nodes, right, where our pod will be created, and this is the master node where all the master components will reside to manage our Kubernetes cluster, right? So let's quickly go to S3 bucket. You will see most of everything, all the configuration would have been placed of this cluster in this bucket itself. So here you go, and you can see all the details here. In the same way, if you go to Route 53, your routes would have been created here, right? You can, if you go to hosted zone, you will see more records. Initially, you see there was only two records, right? Now you can see here the four records has been created. So two records has been automatically added by the cluster itself, kops itself, right? In the same way, it would have added couple of roles to IAM, right? So you can go through and validate those things, right? And any time in future, you might face some issues while operating from the cluster. So our cluster is ready to use now, right? We are able to pull all the details of our cluster now, right? The first thing, it we got one command, right? If you want to SSH your master cluster directly, master node, you can go ahead and do it. See, I am able to access my master node. You can become a root. kubectl will not be installed at this moment here. And if you want to, I think kubelet is there. It's there, right? You can do here and find node is not there. Kubectl cat. It's not basically able to connect to the resources because most of the time we manage it from the client node itself. That's what we are not able to see anything here, right? So I will come down again, and in the same way, if you would like to access node here using the IPs, because sometime you may have to like troubleshoot those nodes, so you will need the detail. If you want to access the master, go ahead and get the IP and domain name from here. The similar way, you just need to, you already have the keys, right, available with you. So this is the place where your RSA key resides. Fine. And oh, that's fine, it's going with root. So I think the root is by default disabled, right? So you can easily go ahead and log into those nodes. In the same way, if you would like to access your nodes here, you can do that. So it might be useful for you to access those node in some time. Though I'll be using everything from my client node itself. Now, if I do kubectl get pod, we have nothing at this moment. If I do kubectl get sorry node, right? I'll be able to see all the cluster nodes are available here for me. Any questions so far, guys?